Aloha, everybody. This is Dave Wallace coming to you from Waihawa, Hawaii. I wanted to share with you some of my experiences that I had that goes back to my early days when I first started working the spiritual path. And this incident that I want to share with you occurred when I was very young in my early 20s, and it was my first experience being called to assist with someone who was possessed by an evil spirit. When I was called to this home, it was a relative of mine. And when you do something like this, you need to take with you a seasoned partner. So the partner that I had at the time was my father-in-law, and he assisted me. He assisted with me in this particular incident. Being one of the first times out on the road, I needed the guidance. And for those of you who are considering entering this type of work and doing this type of work, you need to be very careful because the spirits out there are very, very tricky. And I'll explain what happened with this first incident. Okay. The family member that I went was a young lady. She was possessed, and I was called by her brothers to come and help. And so I picked up my father-in-law and we headed up to their place near Mililani. And when we got there, the two brothers, as soon as we entered the home, the two brothers was with the sister inside the bedroom. And as soon as we entered the home, this young lady started to scream. And she started acting out and kicking, fussing. And the two brothers, who were really large men, had to hold her down, and they were fighting to hide her down, hold her down, and very struggling. So she had a really rough time. And so when we entered the room, my father-in-law started talking with my cousins to find out what was going on, and I started looking and observing what was going on. And while I was observing my cousin, the woman that was possessed, quiet down, and she calmed down and looked at me straight in my eyes and called me by my name. Hello, David John. And I looked at her and I says, oh, hello, how are you doing? And she told me in a very calm voice, it says, why are you folks here? I'm fine. I don't need you folks. You folks are, you know, I don't need you. And I says, well, we just came to make sure that you're okay. And um, I said, I'm here to help. Oh, and so my cousins started to say, oh, I don't need your help. I'm fine. So when my father-in-law saw this going on, he kind of laughed at me and chuckled, and he says, "Well, Dave, let me by." And as soon as my father-in-law stepped forward to address my cousin, she started screaming, and this is when I realized that the spirit was trying to deceive me and make me go away. And this is something that spirits will try and do, especially the person that's least experienced. So we began the process of, um, removing the spirit. I was given the first chance in anointing the my cousin with oil that we use in the Mormon faith to um, start the process of cleansing. And my father-in-law, after I did the anointing, he came with the blessing and he asked me to keep my eyes open to watch where the spirits are going. And one of the customs that we had at the time, and I still use today, is if we dare to cast out a spirit from the home or a person, we leave one of the doors open. And for this one, we left the front door open. And as my father-in-law started to remove the spirits out from the body, from my cousin, he directed the spirits to leave through the front door. And my job was to watch to make sure that the spirits would leave through the front door. And as the spirits began to depart and leave the body of my cousin, um, she she started to make really strange noises like and every time she exhaled, the spirit would exit. And I would watch the spirit, and the spirit would walk slowly towards the door, and the spirit was more like in the form of a shadow, more like a dark shadow, moving across the room, exiting from the bedroom, through the living room, and out the front door. And there were about 7 of them, 7 what I counted. And finally, when the last spirit left, my cousin, went into a really, really deep sleep, and she was exhausted. She was sweating profusely, and her body just went limp, so we allowed her to sleep for a bit. And finally, when she started sleeping, we wanted to make sure that no spirits was left in her, so we stuck around the home until she was able to wake up. And within 10 minutes after she fell asleep, she woke up and came out and found us talking to her brothers in the living room. And she came out and looked at us and said, "Hi, everybody," just like everything's fine. And she had no recollection of the experience that we were there for, and the exorcising of the spirits from her body. So she was relaxed, and it was good to see her um, behaving normally. And this is a cousin that had not seen me in years, and I had to reintroduce myself to her and who I was. I was David John, and she finally said, "Oh yeah, from Molokai." Yeah. Now, I knew something was wrong when the spirit called me by my name, David John, because this cousin hadn't seen me for so long and probably wouldn't have recognized me. So this is an indication that the spirit was trying to play around with me and persuade me to leave it alone. So these are some things that you need to be aware of, okay? So when you are doing this, be sure that you're not doing this by yourself, and you take along someone who's experienced. And if you're exercising or removing spirits from another person, be sure that you direct the spirits where to leave, where to go. Otherwise, they're going to be hanging around in the home. Yeah, given the option, they'll just leave, and probably if you don't cast them out of the home, they'll catch a ride with you. Okay? So be mindful of everything that you do in this process, and this is my experience, and I hope you learn from this. And this is Dave Wallace from Iowa saying mahalo for listening, and see you folks next week. Aloha.